tell y'all again. Meet us at Kroger Field.
I'm going to be honest. Kentucky and Indiana, to me, seem to be two of the teams that are receiving the most hype for the least amount of reason in my mind. I don't get it in either case. Kentucky went 4-6 last year in a 10-game SEC-only schedule, finishing 5-6 after a win over NC State in the Gator Bowl, probably their best win of the year. Starting quarterback Terry Wilson is gone. He's transferred to New Mexico. Offensive coordinator and a quarterback's coach were fired by head coach Mark Stoops. So a brand new offense for Kentucky heading into 2021, and fans at least have some reason, I guess, to be optimistic. Anytime you have change, I guess the hope exists that things could get better. Kentucky's offense was absolutely horrible last year. Can Kentucky's offense make a step forward in 2021? Can Kentucky get back to where they were 2 or 3 years ago when they were a top 15 team? We're going to try to find out in this video when I give you a preview and a game-by-game prediction for the Kentucky Wildcats. The Neckbeards. Let's go. Yeah, good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well. Hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. Believe it or not, some of them are even watchable. I don't know about this one. You'll have to let me know in the comments after the video is over. Also, be sure and let me know where you think I was wrong in this video. I'm going to give you a game-by-game prediction for Kentucky. Not only their overall record, but I'm going to let you know who it is I think they're going to lose to. And yes, I have my copious notes. All right, here we go. Kentucky Wildcats. Like I mentioned, 4-6 last year, 5-6 after a bowl win in the Gator Bowl over NC State. Mark Stoops returns as head coach after firing the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach after last season, and for good reason. Kentucky's offense was absolutely pitiful. In the game against Georgia, for example, they didn't even attempt a pass over 9 yards downfield. Their offense has just been stuck in neutral for a couple of years now. They have to improve on that side of the ball if they ever have any chance of getting back to 9, 10, or more wins in that top 15 ranking that they achieved a few years ago. They hired a Rams assistant, Liam Cohen, to come in and be the offensive coordinator and run that offense. He's going to try to implement the same offense that the Rams run in the NFL, the Sean McVay system. I won't get into what that is. If you've seen the Rams play, then you sort of know what I'm talking about here. Let's take a look at Kentucky's offense in 2020. Well, before we do that, let's do the recruiting. I like to look at the recruiting over the last 4 years for every single team. I know this isn't an exact determination of a talent level of a team, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what might be available on the team in terms of talent. You look at the last 4 classes. Starting with the most recent, 2021, Kentucky had the 34th ranked class nationally, 12th in the SEC. Hard to win a lot of games when you're 12th in recruiting in the SEC. 2020, they were 25th nationally. One of the best recruiting classes maybe that they've ever had. They were 25th nationally, still was only good for 9th in the SEC. 2019, they were 34th nationally, back to 12th in the SEC. And in 2018, they were 37th nationally, good for 11th. So on average, they're recruiting around the 30 to 31 spot and about 10th or 11th in the SEC in terms of overall talent. Now, you've got things like transfers and other things that can affect the talent level that a team has, but this gives you a pretty good idea of the talent that they're able to bring in on a yearly basis. Now back to the offense. Of course, like I mentioned, Terry Wilson is gone. Kentucky fans, I'm sure, probably don't mind. It never really worked out for Terry Wilson at Kentucky. He came in with a nickname, Touchdown Terry, suffered the injury bug while at Kentucky, and honestly had a serious turnover problem. I called him Turnover Terry. Just didn't really work out for him there. He's off to New Mexico for his last year of eligibility. Joey Gatewood remains from last year's team, who, of course, was a transfer from Auburn. Joey Gatewood lost the quarterback battle to Bo Nix a couple of seasons ago. Got the hell out of Dodge. Landed at Kentucky, where he played a little bit last year. They also have Bo Allen and a Penn State transfer who played quite a bit last year in a backup role at Penn State. Will Levis, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, nor do I particularly care. I don't name these people. It's just my job to pronounce their name wrong. So the guy from Penn State, now, like I mentioned, he played quite a bit last year. He actually had 421 yards passing and 260 yards rushing. So he's kind of your Terry Wilson type guy, right? He can run around if you need him to. Also had 421 yards through the air as a backup at Penn State, though. We'll see. Cohen recruited that guy out of high school back when Cohen was a college coach before. So when he got to Kentucky and he took a look at the quarterback situation, he told Mark Stoops, we need to go out and get somebody for the transfer portal. And he particularly targeted this guy from Penn State. Maybe that gives him a leg up heading into the fall. We'll see. I have heard that Joey Gatewood played pretty well during the spring from other Kentucky fans, so we'll see. But as of right now, Kentucky's yet to name a starting quarterback. I'd be surprised if they did so up until maybe a week or so before the season starts. It appears to be a pretty open competition there at Kentucky for the starting quarterback job. Running back, I actually like Kentucky's running back situation. And as bad as their offense has been overall the last couple of years, their running game really has been pretty good. They returned junior running back Rodriguez Jr. He was fifth in the SEC last year in yards per game with 87.2 yards per game. And that's splitting carries. You have some teams that rotate running backs in and out. You have some teams that rely on a primary back. Kentucky rotated guys in and out. Rodriguez was still fifth in the SEC in yards per game at 87.2. And they also get one of the guys with maybe the best name in all of college football, Kavasier Smoke. They get him back. He's sort of your change of pace back, your third down back, a speed guy, home run hitter, whatever you want to call him. He's a guy that can take a sweep 80 yards to the house if you don't fence him in. Wide receiver position, it's hard to know a lot about the wide receiver position at Kentucky because the quarterback play has been so bad over the last couple of years. But you get Josh Ali back. How good is he? We don't really know. He's played some, but like I said, the quarterbacks have been terrible. You bring a transfer in from Nebraska and Wendell Robinson, and you have two pretty good tight ends. Honestly, it's going to depend on the quarterback situation at Kentucky, whether any of these guys ever become any good or not. They've been struggling the last 2 years because of the quarterback position. They've got to get that figured out if this offense is going to go forward in 2021. Offensive line, some good, some bad there. You lose your starting center and your starting left tackle from last year, but you did get that left tackle that transferred out of LSU a couple of weeks ago, and he was LSU's starting left tackle last year. Now, he's got some issues. If he can get those issues under control at Kentucky, he could be a starting lineman at Kentucky this year. You also get Kennard back. Now, he's an All-American candidate. He's probably going to be the one that moves to left tackle. At least that was the plan before you brought in the guy from LSU. Maybe Kennard stays at his original position this year. I don't know, but he was probably your best offensive lineman last year. And like I mentioned, a legitimate All-American candidate in 2021. Over on the defensive side of the ball, you lose a lot more over there. 7 starters gone off of Kentucky's defense from last year. Senior nose tackle McCall looked good in the spring. He should play a big role in 2021 along that defensive line. 2025 star defensive lineman Justin Rogers needs to turn out to be really good. Very rare for Kentucky to get a 5-star player. We went over their recruiting rankings a few minutes ago. When you're recruiting in the mid-30s nationally and when you're recruiting 11th and 12th in the SEC, clearly that means you're not getting a lot of 5-stars. So when you do get one, you need to make sure they pan out. And you have one in Justin Rogers, and he needs to be good in 2021 for Kentucky's defense to keep them in some games. Middle linebacker, you lose the starter there too. Jamin Davis, he left early for the NFL, but you get DeAndre Square back on the outside, and he's a pretty good player too. As far as replacing what you have there in the middle, you brought another transfer in, this time from Michigan State, and you also have Luke, is it Luke Felton? I think it's Luke Fulton, actually. They'll compete to replace him in the middle. We'll see which way that goes. Could be a rotation thing. Who knows? Last in the SEC last year in sacks per game. Whoever you decide to put on the outside of that defensive line or on the interior of that defensive line in the outside linebacker's position, they've got to start getting to the quarterback. You just cannot let a quarterback in today's football sit in the pocket. Even an average quarterback will pick a defense apart if he's got all day to sit back there to throw the ball. Last in sacks per game, it's not going to cut it. That's got to improve. You lose both your starting cornerbacks from last year. You get a safety back, though. He might be the best defensive back you have. You do have one corner who started 2 games last year because your starter quit, basically. He opted out of the last 2 games of the season. So he at least got 2 games under his belt. He'll be one of the starters. You got to figure out what's going to go on the other side. All right, let's put Kentucky's schedule up on the screen, and I'll let you know how they're going to do. I mentioned at the top, Kentucky and Indiana, I've gotten probably more comments or phone calls about those 2 teams in terms of people saying, they could be pretty good. I disagree. I don't really understand the hype around Kentucky. We'll forget Indiana for now. We'll get to that later. I don't really understand the hype around Kentucky. They've had not just a bad offense, but one of the worst offenses in the SEC over the last few years. They've got a brand new offensive coordinator, a brand new quarterbacks coach, and no matter who the starting quarterback is, they're going to be brand new. It's going to be a first-year starter at Kentucky, whether it's Joey Gatewood, whether it's the young kid, or whether it's the transfer from Penn State. it's going to be a first-time starter. You're losing 7 starters on defense, and your defense has been better than your offense the last couple of years. When I look at Kentucky overall, the only real strength I see is potentially the running game, right? You lose a couple of starters off the line, but you got a couple of really good ones coming back. Plus, you get the guy from LSU. Plus, you've got 2 pretty good running backs. The problem with getting too excited about that is that's what you had last year and the year before that and the year before that. You've had a pretty good running game. You've had a pretty good offensive line. The passing game is what people have to see in order to believe. And I'm just not sure I'm a believer. Maybe I'll change my mind after Kentucky plays a couple of games this season, but it's going to take that for me to change my mind. I'm going to have to see Kentucky successfully throw the ball down the field before I'm willing to buy in. So I just wanted to get that out first before I go through these games and give you my wins and losses, because that's the angle I'm coming at this prediction from. I'm just not a buyer on Kentucky this year. You start out with Louisiana Monroe at home. Louisiana Monroe was 0-10 last year. Win. You'll beat Louisiana Monroe. Week 2, home against Mizzou. Now, if Kentucky's the most overhyped team in the SEC, in my opinion, heading into 2021, I think Mizzou is the most underhyped team. I think Mizzou potentially could challenge for the East, could definitely come in second in the East. And I hear hardly anybody ever mention them. I think Mizzou beats you at home week 2 at your home. This game's played at Kroger Field. Yeah, Kroger Field. Do you have your Kroger card? No. Can I enter a phone number? Yeah. Okay, good. And I can go sell that phone number to all the car warranty companies. That's what they do. If you want to know why you get all these phone calls from car warranty companies nonstop, it's because Kroger has been selling every phone number you've been giving them for the last 30 years. That's why. Okay, that puts you at 1-1 heading into week 3, a home game against Chattanooga, a game that you absolutely have to win, and I think you should. That takes you to week 4 at South Carolina. They got a brand new head coach, not a whole lot of talent. Not an easy place to play on the road in Columbia, South Carolina, and this is a game that you could lose. I think I'm kind of giving you the benefit of the doubt here. I'm giving you a win on the road at South Carolina. You're better than them. You got consistency at the head coach position, even though you got some turnover with the offensive staff. You got some consistency at the head coach position where there's breaking in a new head coach in Columbia that's never coached before, and the talent level there really is just bottom of the barrel. I do think you win on the road at South Carolina, but then you have one of the toughest 3-game stretches that I've seen. Home against Florida, home against LSU, on the road against Georgia. You're going to lose all 3 of those games. You're just nowhere close talent-wise to any of these 3 teams. I know you've played Florida close several times over the last few years. You even managed to beat them once. A couple other times you had them beat and should have beat them, and you let them get back in the game and win. I don't see it happening this year. I know Florida loses basically their entire offense, and I do expect Florida to take a step or 2 back. But I don't think Florida's going to be one of these 4 or 5 or 6 win teams that we've seen them do a couple of times recently under McElwain and before that Muschamp, where they had the 4-8 seasons. I don't see that happening this year for Florida. I don't think they'll lose to you. I've got you taking a loss at home to Florida. Same with LSU. LSU's a tough team to figure out. They were really, really bad last year, 5-5 after going undefeated and winning a national championship the year before. LSU's not that bad. They had a lot of players that didn't play last year. They lost a ton of talent from the year before off the national title team to the NFL. They had issues at quarterback last year, injuries. They played 3 or 4 different QBs. I don't expect them to have any of those issues this year. I don't think LSU is good enough to win the West this year, but they're good enough to beat Kentucky. You're going to take a loss there. And then on the road at UGA, I think you've beat us twice in the last 20 years. I don't think the 3rd time is this year. You got to play in Athens. I have all 3 of these teams beating you. These are 3 top 15 teams here. If you feel disrespected by me saying you're going to lose to those 3 games, well, tough luck. I don't know what to tell you. Then you get your bye week before you play at Mississippi State. You should have had this bye week somewhere in the Florida, LSU, UGA range, but you didn't. You have it after those 3 losses to lick your wounds, I guess. You go on the road at Mississippi State. Again, I'm giving you some benefit of the doubt here, and I have you winning on the road at Mississippi State. They were absolutely horrible last year. After that week 1 win they had against LSU, when people couldn't believe what they were seeing, Mississippi State went right back to being what they thought they would be, which is an absolutely horrible team. We'll see how they look this year, year 2 with Bigfoot down there, new head coach Mike Leach. We'll see what they can do. But I've got you winning on the road at Mississippi State. So if you're mad about one of these other losses I gave you, I could easily have you losing on the road at Mississippi State, but I've got you winning. Now, what will make you mad is I've got you losing at home the following week to Tennessee. Yeah, that Tennessee. A terrible Tennessee team with a new head coach that doesn't know what he's doing and next to no talent at all. They lost 25 players to the transfer portal. They're under an NCAA investigation for buying players with Happy Meal money. It's just a complete mess in Knoxville. But Tennessee's been a complete mess for the last 10 to 12 years, yet they seem to beat you every single year without a problem. I think you beat them twice in that 12-year period or something like that. Honestly, you can flip these around. What it came down to, these were the hardest two for me to pick, just to be honest with you. I think you're going 1-1 in these two games, okay? So maybe you lose to Mississippi State and beat Tennessee, but I've got you winning on the road at Mississippi State and losing to Tennessee. That's what I'm sticking with. Then I got you closing out the season with a 3-game winning streak. I got you winning at Vandy. I think they're the worst team in the SEC. They might go 1-11 this year. I've got you beating another group of 5 team, New Mexico. And then I've got you winning on the road at Louisville to close out your season. And that's a 50-50 game. Louisville was very disappointing last year, but they've got some talent on offense. And I like the offense that they run. Now, they didn't run it very well last year, and that's one of the reasons their record wasn't very good. But they've got some things to work with at Louisville, and that by no means is a guaranteed win for Kentucky. You could lose that last game and finish 6-6. But there it is. I've got you going 7-5. Your 5 losses are to Mizzou, Florida, LSU, Georgia, and Tennessee. Worst case scenario for you guys, if the wheels fall off, I could see a 5-7 type season, right? If for some reason you lose to South Carolina, or if for some reason you go 0-2 against Mississippi State and Tennessee instead of 1-1, right? Maybe you lose to Louisville instead of beat them, whatever. Worst case scenario, I see 5-7. Best case scenario, 8-4. Maybe you end up going 2-0 against Mississippi State and Tennessee instead of 1-1, and you finish 8-4 instead of 7-5, something like that. So I think your record will be somewhere between 5 and 8 wins. I've got you at 7-5, with the 5 losses being Mizzou, Florida, LSU, Georgia, and Tennessee. There it is. I hope you enjoyed that video. Remember, don't get too mad. No matter how bad your football team is, it pales in comparison to how terrible your neckbeard is. Have a good morning.
Say y'all again. Meet us at Kroger Field. Uncle Lou, meet us at Kroger Field.